Hi, Pete Mark, probate specialist here in Denver, Colorado. In this video, I would like to briefly go over something many people get confused about, and that is what is called earnest money. Many people believe earnest money is actually their down payment that they have to put down. And although if the transaction closes, the earnest money may be applied to the down payment. However, it is not actual down payment funds in the typical sense of the term. So earnest money are the funds that is typically between 1.5 to 3% of the listing price, and funds that are put down by the buyer when making an offer on a property to show the seller that the buyer is serious about purchasing the property for sale. Basically, it's how much skin in the game is the buyer willing to put up. So once an offer is made and a seller has accepted the offer, the buyer usually has between 3 to 4 business days, obviously excluding weekends and holidays, to deposit the earnest money funds with the escrow company. Now, here in Colorado, the escrow company would be the title company handling the transaction. I know over some parts of the country, the escrow funds are held by the listing agent's brokerage, but not here in Colorado. So once the earnest money is delivered, the seller or the seller's agent will take a home off the market by changing the status of the listing in the MLS from what is known as active to pending until it gets to the closing. So the purpose of earnest money, like I said, it's how much skin in the game the buyer is willing to put up. And what it does is it protects the seller's interest if the transaction doesn't close. Now, if the transaction doesn't close due to no fault of the buyer, for instance, something large comes up on an inspection and the seller and the buyer cannot resolve the difference, or the buyer does not approve of or doesn't like something in the documents provided by the HOA, then the buyer will get their earnest money funds back. And in most instances, only the amount of their earnest money that they've already put down. Now, if the buyer backs out or causes the deal to become what is known as out of contract, and again, for whatever reason, however, they've actually caused the deal to fall out of contract. They miss a deadline, or they go out and buy a new car the day before closing, or some other negligent issue. The seller has the right to keep the earnest money as what is known as liquidated damages. And again, in most cases, only the amount of the earnest money can be kept by the seller. So why is that? Right? The seller is taking a risk that the transaction may not close. And if this is the case, they would have to relist the property and essentially start the selling process all over again, which could cost them a significant loss since they lost the opportunity to accept offers from other ready, willing, and able buyers, qualified buyers, while the home was off the market in pending status in the MLS. So the practice of depositing earnest money, also known in some parts of the country as good faith funds, can decrease the likelihood of a buyer placing multiple offers on multiple properties and then walking away once the seller decides once the buyer decides which property they want, and the sellers have taken the properties all off of the market. However, I would like to say here at this point that this is not always the case when it comes to some investor buyers, deterring them from doing this. Most of the time, the investors are paying cash, right? So I've had experiences with some of these types of investor buyers who do this, and I have a certain procedure with my clients when I represent the listing, the owner of the property, that I use with these types of buyers to protect them, because that's what you're hiring an agent for, right? You're hiring a real estate broker to be your agent to look out for your best interests. It is a fiduciary responsibility that real estate agents have. So, with that little side note, what happens to the earnest money at closing? Well, if all goes according to the contract, the deal gets to the closing table. The earnest money may be applied to either the buyer's down payment or other qualifying closing costs. Now, one important fact about earnest money, and this trips a lot of people up, it has to be in what is known as good funds, and it must do what is known as cook. It has to be in the buyer's checking or savings account for a period of time. It has to be trackable by the lender or the finance company. In most cases, and again, in most cases, it cannot be a loan or a large amount of funds that have recently been deposited into one of the buyer's accounts, savings or checkings account. If that's done, first, it will raise a big red flag to the lender, and second, it could kill the financing and the deal would fall apart. So that is earnest money in a nutshell. If you would like to know more about it or are thinking about buying or selling, you can reach out to me by text or email or phone, as well as check out my webpage at frontrangehomes.us. Make sure it's .us, not .com, frontrangehomes.us. You can call me or text 720-203-8812. Or you can shoot me an email at pete.marck@gmail.com. So thanks for watching, and hope this gave you a little bit more information. Have a great day. Bye-bye.